Now, welcome to all. In last lecture, we are discussing about the concept of types of expansion of macros. That is, we discussed two types of macro expansion, that is lexical expansion and semantic expansion, how that expansion can take place. While when we consider the semantic expansion, we need to consider the conditional expansion. According to the condition, macro will be expanded, and expansion time loop. In this case, some statements were visited repeatedly during the expansion. In this case, what happened, that is one data structure is required for the expansion time loop called as the macro expansion counter. Using this macro expansion counter, the expansion time loop will be implemented. Now, in last lecture, we conclude about the types of parameters when we call the macro, when we write the macro definitions, where we consider two types of the parameters or two definitions of the parameter. That is, one is nothing but the formal parameters, and second one is nothing but the actual parameters. When we write the definition of a macro, at that time we use formal parameter, and when we call the macro, we can use the uh, actual parameters. Now, according to that two things, we need to consider some other kinds of the parameters. That is, this is we consider formal parameters and actual parameters are the two basic types or two main types of the parameters, but belonging to that of we can have some other kind of parameters can be used in our macro also. In that case, first one we consider the positional parameters, second one we consider the keyword parameters, third type of parameter is called as the default specification of the parameter. In other high level languages, we can use such a parameter as a default parameter. In third, next thing is that is macro with mixed parameter. That is, we combine the positional parameter, keyword parameter, and default parameter into a single macro. Okay, and some other use of the parameter can also be discussed in this particular today's lecture. Now, we discuss each type of parameter in details one by one. First of all, we need to consider the positional parameters. What is the positional parameter, or how that positional parameters can be used in your macros? In this case here, we can see the particular syntax for the positional parameter. Here, positional parameter can be written as and parameter name. That is, we can use the parameter name with the corresponding symbol. That is nothing but the that symbol is nothing but and percent sign or and symbol. We consider that particular representation. We consider this particular representation corresponding to that of the positional parameter. Okay, now next thing here, positional parameter, given the example for that, and sample it is the name of parameter, and we can pass and operator here. We can consider this type of parameter is called as the positional parameter, where sample is the name of the parameter, and parameter kind is nothing but, that is, the syntax rule is omitted in that particular parameter kind. Parameter kind in the sense, what is the type of this parameter uh, is, that is here only we can a representation of this type of parameter, we consider that type of parameter is nothing but the positional parameters. Now, the value of positional formal parameter xyz is determined by the rule of positional association as follows. Now, how we can calculate the value of the formal parameters, positional formal parameters? We can consider xyz as a parameters used in our macro. These are the formal parameters, and we need to map the actual parameters corresponding to that of the formal parameter. We need to consider some rules. That is, here first rule is given that find the ordinal position of xyz in the list of formal parameters in the macro prototype statement. When we write the particular macro, we can write the name of macro and corresponding parameter name, and we mention the list of the parameters at that particular point when we define the macro, when we write the definition of the macro name. Now, we need to first find out the actual sequence of these xyz parameters in the given macro prototype statement. Macro prototype statement is nothing but the name and corresponding parameter. Under that name and corresponding parameter list, we can use some model statements of that particular macro. Now, next thing is nothing but the actual parameter specification occupying the same ordinal position in the list of actual parameters in the macro call statement. In which way we can write the formal parameter specification, according to the same sequence, we need to consider macro call and we pass the actual parameter sequence. If we use here xyz as a formal parameter sequence, and next thing is nothing but in actual parameter list we can use a b c. Now a corresponds to x, b corresponds to y, and c corresponds to the z. If we change the particular sequence of these particular parameters, then accordingly the actual parameter position or accordingly actual parameter list also change. Now for that purpose we need to consider the sequence of formal parameters, and according to the actual parameter list will be maintained, or according to the actual parameter list will be given in that particular macro call statement. Okay, this is the case of the formal positional parameters used in our program. Now we can see here one thing, that is in the given next type of the, that is second type of parameter is nothing but keyword parameter. We consider the example for these two types of parameters in the given example. That is, we consider the example of both type of parameters in next slide. Before that, we need to consider the what is keyword parameters, or how we can write the keyword parameter. Now it can provide the easy correspondence between formal parameters and actual parameters. What happened in the positional parameter? We need to determine the sequence of positional parameters. Okay, and accordingly we need to map the sequence of actual parameter during the macro call. Okay, now in case of the keyword parameter, the mapping or correspondence between formal parameters and actual parameters will be handled properly or easily. Now here we write the keyword parameter using the syntax and parameter name, and next thing is nothing but the parameter kind. What is this parameter kind? We write the parameter kind as a string of equal to. We mention equal to sign at the location of parameter kind. And when we consider the positional parameter, we can have only and parameter name. It does not have anything after that. We consider or we neglect the parameter kind. But in case of the keyword parameter, we can specify the parameter kind as a equal to. Suppose me जर एक्स ॲज अ पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर कन्सिडर केला, तर मी मॅक्रोचं डेफिनेशन देताना प्रोटोटाइप राईट करताना त्या ठिकाणी एक्स पॅरामीटर कसं लिहिणार, फक्त अँड एक्स एवढंच मेन्शन केलं जाईल. बट इफ आय वॉन्ट दॅट एक्स ॲज अ कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर, देन आय कॅन राईट अँड एक्स इक्वल टू. Okay, can write and x equal to, that is nothing but equal to sign represent the kind of that parameter. If we remove the equal to sign, if we remove the equal to string, then it is positional parameter. If we add equal to sign to that parameter, then it is nothing but the keyword type of parameter. Okay, now in this case here we consider the syntax and parameter name equal to. This is the representation of keyword parameters. Okay, now after that the actual parameter specification is written as, how we can write the actual parameter. This is the keyword parameter. Now accordingly we need to consider the actual parameter also corresponding to the given keyword parameter. Now we write the actual parameter according to this particular format, that is the formal parameter name. What is the formal parameter? Which is used at the time of that is the formal parameter given to the macro definition. But instead of this formal parameter, we need to consider the actual parameter specification. We mention here actual parameter name. Instead of this formal parameter, we consider the actual parameter name equal to ordinary string. Ordinary that is, here we can consider, note that the ordinal position of the specification xyz equal to abc in the list of actual parameters is immaterial. Okay, now in this case here we can consider this particular syntax to write the actual parameter specification. Here ordinary string which contains the our actual parameter. Okay, it is clear, that is formal parameter name and ordinary string. Ordinary string is nothing but our actual parameter will be given to that of the formal parameter. We assign the value of actual parameter to the actual parameter to the formal parameter. Okay, now this is very useful in the situation where long list of parameters have to be used. When we use the very long list of the parameters during the macro prototype, at that time we use keyword parameter. It is very useful because to maintain the sequence of a positional parameter, it is very complicated task. We need to map the correspondence between one by one. That is, first parameter in the formal list, accordingly we match the actual parameter in the given list. Second parameter to second formal to second actual, third formal to third actual. We need to manually map these particular things, but in case of the keyword parameter we write any sequence. But when we write the sequence, when we write that particular parameter, we need to specify this particular representation, that is which actual parameter is assigned to which formal parameter according to this specification. That is xyz is the formal parameter name, and we assign that formal parameter with the abc as a actual parameter. Okay, we consider this particular sequence, or the passing sequence is immaterial in the sense that is we use any type of sequence in during the macro prototype, and we change the sequence at the time of macro call. म्हणजे तिथे दोन्ही ठिकाणची सिक्वेन्स आपल्याला मॅप करण्याची गरज पडत नाही. तुम्ही डेफिनेशन देताना वेगळी सिक्वेन्स वापरली आणि मॅक्रो कॉल करताना वेगळ्या सिक्वेन्सने तुम्ही जर मॅक्रो कॉल केलं असेल, पॅरामीटरची लिस्ट वेगळी सिक्वेन्स मध्ये घेतली असेल, देन इट इज ऑल्सो अलाउड, बिकॉज वी कॅन असाइन the particular actual parameter value to the formal parameter in this particular way. Okay, now we can see the example of these two type of the parameter. Here we can see here that is decr, decrement the value. Okay, x minus y, x equal to x minus y. We implement this particular example expression. We write this particular macro will be named as decr, that is we consider it as a decrement. Okay, now here all the three types of parameters can be given as a keyword parameter. तिन्ही टाइपचे पॅरामीटर जे तुम्हाला इथे बघायला मिळतात, हे तिन्ही पॅरामीटर हे कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर्स आहेत. ओके, now in this case here and a equal to, if we remove the equal to sign, then this is the positional parameter. जर आपण इथनं इक्वल टू साइन काढून टाकलं तर हा पॅरामीटर कोणता होणार तुमचा, पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर होणार. and if we use equal to sign, then this is nothing but the keyword parameter. Okay, now next thing we can use move r and a register and a sub and register and b move m and register and a m and. Okay, now we can start our assembly program, that is start 100. We write the we consider the location counter or memory address from the 100. Read x, read y, this is not our matter. We consider the macro call statement, that is decr. We use here x equal to a equal to x, b equal to y, and register value will be considered as a b register. Now here we can consider in this case that is in the previous example, here instead of the formal parameter we can use the actual parameter name equal to ordinary string. Ordinary string contains the name of our formal parameter. Okay, now instead of this formal that is we consider here, instead of actual parameter we can consider the formal parameter, we can consider here actual parameter. Okay, that is this actual parameter should be used at this particular point, and ordinary string is nothing but the name of the formal parameter. Okay, now next thing is consider next thing will be considered as that is in example we consider decr actual parameter name. Okay, equal to x, sorry, a will be considered as, okay, nothing change. It is clear. Formal parameter name and corresponding actual parameter. इथे actual parameter ची व्हॅल्यू आहे x, इथे actual parameter ची व्हॅल्यू आहे y, आणि दुसरं रजिस्टर मध्ये actual parameter ची व्हॅल्यू आहे b रजिस्टर. ओके, डोंट कन्फ्यूज. इथे तुम्ही जे पॅरामीटर पास करताय DCR ला, फॉर्मल पॅरामीटरला ऍक्च्युअल पॅरामीटर मॅप केला. ओके, आता पहिलं DCR फंक्शन बघा कसं दिलं, किंवा मॅक्रो कॉल कसा दिला. वी कॅन यूज द सिक्वेन्स, दॅट इज ए बी अँड रजिस्टर करस्पॉन्डिंग, ए बी आणि करस्पॉन्डिंग रजिस्टर. ओके, नाउ वी कॅन कन्सिडर सेकंड टाइप ऑफ मॅक्रो कॉल. We consider B first, then A, and then register. We can change this sequence another macro call also. This sequence does not matter. Okay, which parameter you can take first in case of the keyword parameter, because we directly assign the corresponding actual parameter to the given formal parameter. इथे प्रोटोटाइपच्या वेळेस जी सिक्वेन्स वापरली ती सिक्वेन्स इथे वापरलीच पाहिजे असं नाही. ओके, आणि हे जे स्टेटमेंट आहे मॅक्रो कॉल झाल्यानंतर ते एक्सपांड होताना अशा पद्धतीने ते मॅक्रो काय होतात त्या ठिकाणी एक्सपांड होतात. हे एक्सपान्शन आपण बघितलंय, प्लस सिम्बॉल ऍड झाला म्हणजे एक्सपांडेड स्टेटमेंट आहे, आणि तुमच्या फॉर्मल पॅरामीटर मध्ये तुमचे जे काही एक्सपान्शन केलं जाईल त्या स्टेटमेंटचं जे एक्सपान्शन होणार आहे तिथे ऍक्च्युअल पॅरामीटर काय केले जातील त्या ठिकाणी रिप्लेस केले जातील. अशा पद्धतीनं हे लेक्झिकल एक्सपान्शन या ठिकाणी काय केलं जाईल, परफॉर्म केलं जाईल. आणि जी सिक्वेन्स आपण पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर मध्ये कन्सिडर करतो ती सिक्वेन्स आपल्याला कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर मध्ये कन्सिडर करण्याची गरज पडत नाही. इन केस इफ वी चेंज द सिक्वेन्स देन इट इझिली एक्झिक्युटेड बिकॉज इट आयडेंटिफाइज द करस्पॉन्डिंग ऍक्च्युअल पॅरामीटर and it mapped to the corresponding formal parameter. Okay, that is nothing but the keyword parameters. It is helpful for the long list of the parameters. Now next thing is nothing but the that is default specification of the parameters. Now in case of the default specification of the parameters, that is default value is a standard assumption in the absence of an explicit specification by the programmer. If user can use a particular value more than once or compulsory that value is fixed or constant, for example value of pi, okay, it is never changed. That's why we can use this particular value implicitly. That is user does not want to pass that value as a explicit म्हणजे युजरनी पास केली पाहिजे. ओके, आणि जर इम्प्लिसिट जर कन्सिडर केली तर ती ऑटोमॅटिक कन्सिडर होते किंवा ऑटोमॅटिक त्या ठिकाणी कॅप्चर केली जाते. इफ युजर डज नॉट वॉन्ट टू पास द एक्सप्लिसिट व्हॅल्यू टू द पर्टिक्युलर एक्सप्रेशन देन सच cases can be handled with the help of default value. It is nothing but the, or we can say it is the standard assumption for the absence of that explicit specification by the programmer. प्रोग्रामरला त्या ठिकाणी व्हॅल्यू पास करायची नाही, प्रोग्रामर स्वतः ती व्हॅल्यू देणार नाही. प्रोग्राम कडनं ती व्हॅल्यू ऑटोमॅटिकली काय व्हायला पाहिजे, कॅप्चर व्हायला पाहिजे किंवा ती व्हॅल्यू त्या ठिकाणी सिलेक्ट व्हायला पाहिजे. त्यासाठी डिफॉल्ट स्पेसिफिकेशन त्या ठिकाणी वापरलं जातं किंवा डिफॉल्ट पॅरामीटर्स त्या ठिकाणी यूज केले जातात. बाय डिफॉल्ट इफ यू वॉन्ट टू पास न्यू व्हॅल्यू then we can pass it, but if we don't pass the particular value, the default value we considered in that particular expression. For example, we consider the rate of interest in the bank. That is most of the cases rate of interest is common, but if particular customer have a rate of interest in change, okay, bank want to reduce the rate of interest or increase the rate of interest for the particular customer, then bank can pass that changed value to the given location. Okay, on in other cases the default value will be considered when we consider that particular this is the example in your real situation. That is the default parameters. When the desired value is different from the default value, the desired value can be specified explicitly in a macro call. Okay, now the syntax for the formal parameter specification. In case of the default specification, we can use and parameter name, parameter kind, and the corresponding value. Now we can see this in case of the keyword parameter, we can specify the parameter kind, that is string can be given as equal to, but in case of the default specification, we can pass a default value to that of the parameter. Okay, the parameter kind in the sense that is we can use equal to string. This another syntax is given here, that is and parameter name equal to default value. We can use this default value, specify this default value at the time of prototype or at the time of macro definition. Okay, in case of the formal parameters only. When we pass the actual parameter, when we consider the actual parameter definition, if we pass new value, then we can mention this new value at the time of macro call. If you want to use default value, then there is no need to pass this default value to the actual parameter. Okay, now we can consider the basic example for this type of parameters. Now in this case, we can consider only the default value. That is, we can use default value, instead we pass the particular value, and this situation can be used, or this type of parameter can be used when the situation is occur, that is the common value is used most of time, that is the value of pi, or we consider the value of a rate of interest in the bank. Okay, we can consider this particular example. We need we see this definition of the macro given here. End statement is at this particular location, that is macro start at this point and end in this particular location. We see the prototype of the macro. DECR and A equal to and B equal to, these two parameters are called as a keyword parameter, and A and B, and we can have the equal to sign after that, or equal to string, or parameter can be parameter kind will be mentioned here. That's why we call these two types of parameter as a keyword parameter. And next one, third parameter we consider and register equal to, we can pass the default value as a B register. Okay, if we don't specify the value at the time of macro call, then by default the B register value will be considered at the parameter that is register. So we can consider and register as a default parameter. And this example is executable or program is written for the expression x equal to x minus y. Now we can see here move r and a and register and a sub and register and b, move m and register and a, and m end. Here macro definition will be a. We can see the definition of the program. Start 100, read x, read y. Here first call of the macro. Macro first call या ठिकाणी मिळाला decr x equal a equal to x, okay, b equal to y. We can pass only two parameters, that is a and b. That is a and b. That is only keyword parameter will be passed here. No default parameter can be given. Now here third parameter is not passed, that is it can consider B register as a default value of that registers. Okay, and a and reg जे आहे इथे and reg ची जी व्हॅल्यू कन्सिडर होते ती डिफॉल्ट व्हॅल्यू काय कन्सिडर होईल, B register consider केली जाईल. Now we can see the macro expansion, that is move r B register. Now we can see this B register which is the default value in the macro prototype, which is not passed at the time of macro call. Okay, here B register will be considered as a default value, sub B register y, move m B register x. This is the expansion for this macro call. In second type of macro call, we can pass the new value that for the register. So we can mention the third parameter, that is we can change the sequence also, that is b equal to y, a equal to x, according to that keyword parameter representation, and third parameter will be passed as a register with the explicit value as a D register. This is the new value. User wants to change the value of register, then that change value is passed in the next time of the macro call. So we can see here register equal to D register. So we can use D register as a new value, new register value at the time of macro expansion. We can see these changes at the time of default value, using the default value, or instead of default value, implicit value and explicit value in another word. Okay, we can see this example, or I hope you are understood this particular example of a default specification of a parameter, that is the default value. Okay, next thing is nothing but the macros with mixed parameter. Now what happened, that is we can see the three different main types of the parameters. First one is nothing but the positional parameter, second one is we consider as a keyword parameter, and third one we consider as a default parameters. Okay, now when we consider mixed parameter list, that means what we can use, आतापर्यंत आपण काय केलं, एकतर पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर्सच वापरले, किंवा एकतर कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर्सच वापरले, किंवा एकतर default parameters वापरले. Now in case of this macros with mixed parameter list, we can pass positional parameter, we can pass keyword parameter, or we can use default parameter in the same macro call definition. Okay, that is nothing but the mixed parameters list. Now here macro may be defined to use both positional and keyword parameters. In such cases, all positional parameter must precedes all keyword parameters. Now this sequence is most important. First of all, we need to write all positional parameters, because in case of the positional parameter, we need to map the actual parameter to the given positional parameter. Now that sequence must matter. After that all, we can use the keyword parameters. Okay, that's why when we write the example, we can see the example here. We write the sum up as a macro name, AB as a positional parameter, GX as a keyword parameter, or in another word we can say here default value will be passed. So we can consider these are the default parameter also. Okay, now here AB are the positional parameter with G, and H are the keyword parameter with the default values. Okay, now the correspondence between actual and formal parameter is established by the rule governing to the positionals and keyword parameters separately. म्हणजे तुमचे पोझिशनल पॅरामीटरचे रूल पोझिशनल पॅरामीटरला अप्लाय होतील, आणि कीवर्ड पॅरामीटरचे रूल्स कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर फाइंड आउट झाले तर त्यांना अप्लाय होतील. पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर मध्ये सिक्वेन्स 1 to 1 मॅपिंग केले जाईल ऍक्च्युअल टू फॉर्मल, आणि पुढच्या कीवर्ड पॅरामीटरला त्या ठिकाणी तुम्ही ऍक्च्युअली फॉर्मल आणि कीवर्ड फॉर्मल पॅरामीटर्सला ऍक्च्युअल पॅरामीटर्स काय केलेले असतात, असाइन केलेले असतात. त्यामुळे तिथले पोझिशन्स तो मॅटर करणार नाही, परंतु फॉर्मल तुमच्या पोझिशनल पॅरामीटरची पोझिशन मात्र काय केली जाईल त्या ठिकाणी मॅटर्स केली जाते, किंवा त्या ठिकाणी ती कन्सिडर करणं गरजेचं आहे. नाउ वी कॅन कन्सिडर दिस पर्टिक्युलर एक्झाम्पल. फॉर दॅट combination of the macros. Here we can use the positional parameter and A and B, and third parameter will be considered as a keyword parameter. We combine the positional and keyword parameter on the same macro. Move R register and A sub register and B, move M and register and A. Then M end, we can start the program read X, read Y. We call the macro. At that time, we can pass the actual parameter B register to the register, but we need to consider and A and B as a positional parameter corresponding X and Y as a sorry, and A and B as a formal parameter corresponding to that of the X and Y actual parameters. Now one-to-one correspondence in the sense that is X map to A and Y map to B. Now here we can't change the location, that is YX. We can't specify YX because if you want, that is Y can be assigned to that A, but you want Y to should assign to the B. So we can pass this sequence according to the given positional parameter. And register value, actual value will be given to the B register, and corresponding expansion will be takes place to that of the macro, and macro program will be end at this particular position. That is nothing but the mixed parameter list. That is, we can combine the formal parameters and actual parameter into the same macro call. Okay. Now some important points to be note about that particular macro or types of parameters. That is, first point is nothing but if macro contains both positional and keyword parameters, then all positional parameters appear before the keyword parameter. Now we can consider this particular rule corresponding to our high level language also. Okay, all normal variables or normal parameters or formal parameters will be given, positional parameters are given first, and then we can write the keyword parameters. That is, here we can consider positional and keyword parameter. If we use both combinedly, then positional parameter must appear before the keyword parameter. जसं की या ठिकाणी बघा A आणि B पोझिशनल पॅरामीटर होते, ते कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर रजिस्टरच्या अगोदर त्या ठिकाणी काय झाले, डिस्प्ले झाले. Now because the correspondence between formal parameter and actual parameter is determined by the relative positions in the parameter. Second thing is nothing but ordinal position of keyword parameter in actual parameter list are immaterial. म्हणजे तिथे तुमची actual position कन्सिडर केली जात नाही, ऑर्डर कन्सिडर होत नाही. कशाच्या बाबतीत, कीवर्ड पॅरामीटरच्या बाबतीत. दे कॅन अपियर इन एनी ऑर्डर इन ऍक्च्युअल पॅरामीटर लिस्ट. Okay, we can change the list parameter order or sequence in case of the keyword parameter only. If keyword parameter is not specified in the actual parameter list, then default value indicated in the prototype statement is used for the macro expansion. जर तुम्ही आत्ताच आपण एक्झाम्पल बघितलं, डिफॉल्ट स्पेसिफिकेशन मध्ये आपण काय केलंय, कीवर्ड पॅरामीटर स्पेसिफाय केलेला नव्हता, परंतु त्याला डिफॉल्ट व्हॅल्यू आपण मॅक्रोच्या डेफिनेशन मध्ये दिलेली होती. त्यामुळं आपण इकडे त्याला राईट केलंच पाहिजे असं नाही. We don't consider that particular value, then by default default value will be considered by that particular position. Okay, now these are nothing but the three important points related to that of the parameter to the given macro. Next thing is nothing but the other use of the parameter. Now we discuss that other use of parameter in next lecture. Now today we can conclude here, our lecture will be completed. That is the types of the parameters. We can consider 4 different types of the parameters. Okay, now today we can stop here.